to the A. Marie Speaks podcast, where I'm talking about all things introspection, spirituality, and happiness. This episode is a follow-up to the previous podcast where I was talking about the two major global system failures. So if you didn't check that one out, be sure to. It's interesting. I did write it 4 years ago, and it is just about the problems. I mean, I don't really focus on any kind of solutions or anything. I'm just pointing out the general major flaws that I see, or I saw back then, and I was starting to see back then. But it's worth a listen because it's important, obviously, to know where we're coming from, right? To be able to push ourselves into a better direction, a more knowledgeable, in a wise direction, right? Which I feel like is where we're at in the world today in 2022. We're kind of navigating, and we're really trying to follow, or find the North Star, say, our direction, and keep it aligned and keep moving in that way while there's, tons of distractions taking place in the world in front of you. So it's difficult, to say the least. Now today, I really wanted to just give a foundation of kind of how my perspective has opened up around this, these problems, the failures, to talk more about the solutions or the possibility of what kind of solutions, more or less, because I really don't have the distinct solutions. And when we come to planning or prospecting or envisioning solutions on a mass scale, it's important to just leave it in the imagination world and to work with it in that world altogether, because that's where the collective operates from, right? The ether, it's imagination. We all connect into it in our own unique way, sort of like, every IP address or IME or whatever they're called connects to the internet in its own way. We all get into that internet space, the imagination, right? Because this is an example of inversion or a twisting of the organic, the internet versus how we connect, how the conscious collective works. They've stolen because they cannot create new. They steal an idea or a template and they twist it so that it benefits the self instead of works for the other, and they run with it. And excuse me, because it is a template of truth, and also because it is the original organic matrix template, beings resonate with it. They hear the truth inside of it, and whether it's coated with lies around it or not, that truth in there, it has a sense of resonance, and it opens a doorway, an energetic doorway, where there's a possibility of intention there. And then when it's coated with inversions and negativity, see, you're spiraling into a negative polarity. You're being pulled in a negative way. It's very clever how shadow works, how the darkness works. And that is what I really want to get into in this conversation today when I'm looking back at these two major system failures. Because like I said in the original, I called them failures at that time because I was looking at it from a filter of a computer simulation type of approach to the universe. And I saw these things as bugs or as some kind of virus, right? Like a computer virus. And it's so, I found such a little chuckle in there because I didn't, that word is so stigmatized now. You can't even say it. It's such a triggering thing for many people. And I feel it in myself because just with the illusion of it, everything breaking down, the realizations of there is no thing as a virus, right? But anyways, that's a topic for a whole nother podcast, right? But a computer virus, in the way that it works, was the intention of what I was calling these system failures. But also knowing or working with the fact that they're not actually failures because the system was built this way. So in fact, the system is working ingeniously. It's a monstrous machine, a torture chamber, but it is working very, very precisely. So when I call them system failures, I'm calling them that for they're failing the human being. The system that should be working for the human being is failing, not the system of the matrix, because that system that was created to control is succeeding. It's going to fall apart because negative cannot get so heavy, right? It gets out of control. Chaos can only get so spun out of control until just everything falls apart. The wheels totally fall off it. So that's what we're approaching now. But the solutions, again, is what I would really like to focus on, the possibilities of how to, first and foremost, open up our sight here, open up the perspective, and stop looking at them as system failures. Stop looking to the system, thinking we need to fix that system in some way, and then it will work to benefit us. We need to, as a collective, agree that the system is not designed to work for us, and therefore we abandon the whole system as an entirety, and we create something different. Because that's the only way true solutions are going to come through. That's the only way that humanity can really grow as a collective, is that more positive path of seeking, systems that are beneficial, that serve others. And so when I'm looking at these two system failures that I mentioned, they are the illusion of sovereignty or false freedom, right? And the other is this pay-to-live cycle, our debt-based economics, debt slavery, people call it. And it's very interesting when you look at these two things with the lens of polarity and how negative growth works versus how positive growth works. It makes it much easier to realize the architecture and to see, okay, the negative built this for a purpose, and almost to be able to appreciate and accept that side for what it is. It's difficult to do, and it can be very difficult to understand, especially if you haven't done a lot of shadow work. So bear with me if you're somebody who is very new to shadow work, to the concept of good versus evil, or to this like spiritual growth mindset kind of way of thinking, because it definitely is not part of the mainstream programming. But when you start to pick apart your programming with meditation and introspection and all this kind of self-discovery work, and you start to realize your sovereignty and explore what freedom is and what it means to be a sovereign being, if you haven't checked out my previous podcast on sovereignty or consent and all these things, I have pretty good podcasts on just those topics for beginners, and what those kind of words mean, what kind of universe we're living in, and how to understand duality, basically. So if this is all new to you, I would really suggest checking those out. I will link them in the descriptions on the podcast in case you're interested. So when I'm thinking about the system and the inversion tactics that they use to create this false framing, you have to realize the initial twisting of sovereignty. Now, to be a sovereign being, right, to be your own soul essence, a unique aspect of the Creator who has a right and a purpose to fulfill in the life while they're alive, while they're experiencing consciousness, you have to be able to stand in that place and understand that first before you can even see the inversion, right? This is why you can't save others, and this is why there's so many quotes from history about people trying to free slaves, but if they don't want to leave, or they don't want to take the chains off, or they don't realize they're slaves, right, then you can't save them, no matter how hard you try to show them. And it's this mentality, this victimization, which is the initial, I think, in my opinion, at least one of the initial inversions, distortions, is this taking of sovereignty and twisting it into servitude, and taking the being, the sovereign being, right, whatever we consider to be like this soul essence, specialness, God, say, and placing it on an altar or a platform above others. And then comes, the multitude and the infinite excuses, reasonings, justifications, the structuring that happens to build around the inversion. This is why I really like to use the terms and the description of architecture and templates, because that's really, to me, a very accurate description. And it also can show you how, okay, you can easily take a template and change a couple of things on it, and it changes the entire outlook of the whole picture of the page, or whatever you're using the template for. You personalize it, right? So when they take the template of sovereignty, every life alive is occupying a consciousness that they are on some kind of path of their own, and they have a right to it. And they twist it along, and they make it conditional, where only these amount of people actually have these rights, and no, this category of life does not. And you can see it even through the plant life, through nature, through animals, up through human beings, in a very literal sense of how we determine what type of consciousness is valuable versus what type of consciousness is not. And then, again, we can take that same template and apply it strictly to humanity, which they have done. And now it's a determinal factor between people. And we use it in all different categories, everything from bloodlines to how much currency you have, the power that you have, the fear that you can promote across others, right? We all of a sudden see some people having more freedoms than other people, right? It just, lots of things grow out of there, as we've seen over time and over history. And I don't want to get bogged down yet again in the historical issues and the problems. I really would just like to point out the underlying causation here so that we can get to a real acceptance to then look at real solutions. One other thing that I really wanted to touch on this sovereignty inversion into servitude is that not only does it place some person, type, or whatever up above others, this creates the authority figure, right? This is a huge working mechanism that works throughout their whole system. It is such a basic tool, an insurer that keeps the whole line moving. You know, almost like the little wheels on a conveyor belt. Each little wheel that keeps that belt moving, passing over it, is an acceptance of authority. It's a passing on your responsibility to the higher up. It's passing on judgment. It's, I can't make this decision, I'm not qualified, take it to this person. It's the overseers, the judges, the presidents, the prime ministers, the world organizations, you know, all of these things. God, even, in a way, because yes, religion is just the same in its inversion techniques and in its structuring. It has been stolen and uprooted. So it's the breaking away from, or the breaking away from the structuring, understanding that you've been blindfolded in ways, accepting it, and then now we are working to break it apart and find that true truth inside, right? Personal morals is inside of sovereignty. Connection to source is inside of sovereignty. Service to others is inside of sovereignty. So when we're looking at systems for inversions and we're looking at how things have been distorted to confuse us and control us, right? It's important that we tap back into our truths and that we're always using that very core of our well, our connection to source, the cord, as a guide and as a rope, you know, or a path through the navigation of all the choices that you're making, right? Does this align with my personal morals? Does this align with my sovereignty? Is this infringing on me in some way, right? Am I infringing on others by doing this? These are conversations that a sovereign adult in a conscious collective, right? In a real society of mature, independent, self-sufficient, conscious, critically thinking adults works. Now, when we were children, did you not think or assume that the world actually was run by conscious, critically thinking, actual adults? I did. I was so baffled and blown away at that, knowing that no one ever knows that true authority, yes or no. There is no ultimate overseer because each of us is the ultimate overseer. It's such a catch-22, but when you get it, it's just such a, you know, mind-blown kind of experience because how could it be any other way? And then you can see the inversion of it and you're like, that's why, because they've twisted it to be serving to the self now, to benefit them. And of course, we have to give up our sovereignty to benefit them. Why would it be any other way, right? You cannot have slaves who believe they're sovereign. No person is going to put another ahead of their own personal best for any reason other than love, right? Not servitude. There is no love in servitude. And this is another inversion and a wonderful twisting that they do, especially with religion and with the monarchies, and even with celebrities, and even nowadays they do it with politicians because they've turned politicians into celebrities as well. Political figures, you know, they make them sparkly, they make them special, and they make them more than you. And in that, you are subconsciously or consciously subjugating your sovereignty. You're consenting to their authority over you. Therefore, you're relinquishing your soul, your essence, the right to be you in your life, in your body, this time around. You're relinquishing that to another being who doesn't even have your best interest, who doesn't even has nothing but a negative energy to take from you. It's very, ingenious in the dark path, right? This is why I'm saying it's important to really understand and to be able to accept and acknowledge the work and the planning and the structure that goes into the negative path and into their manipulations, into their show, into the whole matrix, because it is as terrifying and as torturous as it is a a miraculous machine in itself. And you have to be able to acknowledge that in all of its grandeur, all of its horror, to be able to say, I do not consent to that. I will not consent to that. And to choose the lighter. Because the intention and choice comes from knowledge, and the deeper your knowledge runs, the more intention of choice you have, the more weighted that pendulum swings as you make that choice to negative or positive, because you're holding more energetic weight because you have more knowledge, more information about that energy. So as you continue on growing and learning more, keep that in mind. You're building polarity, you're building a charge, right? And it's all about balancing. And if that's new to you as well, definitely check out the previous podcast that I did on consent and sovereignty, because I go into that a little bit more in there. But one last thing that I really wanted to touch on before I go into the second part here is that when we do this consent to authority over us, and what we have done over time now as a collective is that we have created this strange cycle in society where there is no real adults. There is no actual sovereign adult, because there is always the government over you. There is always a prime minister. There is always a politician. There is always a priest or the pope or whoever that you look to, or that your culture or society looks to, is always over the human being as an individual. And it's kind of odd. It's not odd because it's an inversion, but when you look at it from a common sense point, it looks odd, because why, if you were sovereign souls, we're each a special human being, shouldn't we have the ultimate say over ourselves? And they lie to us sort of in the government, because they give you this whole spiel about how the government derives its power from the collective, the people, right? So they're kind of telling you what you want to hear, except they never actually are really following through with that. And everybody gets fooled by it. It's very funny. It's such a contradiction. But this is what inversions are about. And this is why they do that everywhere. And this is why I love to call it a house of mirrors or a fun house, because they do this repeatedly everywhere, so much so that it just confuses everybody. Even if you're a wise person, a critical thinker, even if you're on your toes, you never had a drop of fluoride in your life, it still can trap you, confuse you, when you're just seeing everywhere contortions and distortions. This is why the internal seeking must start first. This is why the foundation of sovereignty, getting in connection with your spirit, tying back into that truth that I was talking about, where you can use it as a compass, as a guiding light to help you make better choices, because the traps are very clever in this system. Now, they have their false freedom set up so that they give you this carrot on the stick sort of thing throughout life, where you're a kid and a teenager, they're pushing you to be this quote-unquote adult, which is basically their form of what they want you to be as an adult, which is someone who, drinks alcohol on the weekends just to make it go by, to enjoy it, and then goes back to their job all week and probably is on some medications, some pharmaceuticals to get through the work week, right? And to sleep and to operate through these things, and then they get drunk all weekend or whatever it is. But they're always listening to their boss. They're following the laws of the government, when they're driving, and they've got all their licenses. They're paying all these fees. Of course, they're paying their taxes. They're scared to death not to, right? Because that's a whole other thing I won't even get into. But anyways, there's always an overhanger. But so they push you to be an adult, and as soon as you get to be this adult and you realize, hey, oh shit, this is all a sham. I have a boss, I have judges, I can't do everything I want, I can't do anything I want. I was freer when I was a child, right? When they were pushing me to be this adult. But then they hang the carrot stick of retirement over our heads and say, oh, no, 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 no. Just keep pushing till 60, 65, and then you get to retire. Then you get to kick back your feet and really enjoy your life because you paid into the system. You've served others. You've done your part. Good boy, good girl. You did what you came here to do for the collective, for society, for the systems, for the children. But in reality, all these systems that are built and all these things that you're slaving away for don't serve a collective. They do not serve humanity, especially, and they do not serve a human being. They serve the system and those who've created it as such, because they're creators of that system. But we put a blind eye and put this, it's not even turn a blind eye, because I believe most people, humans, are moral beings, and we assume others are as well. We assume people are there for our best good. We assume others have love in their heart, because we do. We love our children. We love our families. We go outside, most of us, and we see nature and we think it's beautiful. Maybe, we don't fully appreciate it, or, maybe people like to hunt, or maybe people, like to collect flowers or do these things, feed animals, do all these things that environmentalists say we quote unquote should not, whatever. People like to interact with nature. They like to get outside. They appreciate those things, right? There's an underlying truth there that we just don't have that with the systems. You don't ever just go and admire the tax structure, or the economical systems, the financial whatever. It's just not the same, right? But somehow we've contorted it and distorted this vision. And this is really what leads me into the second major failure, which I still believe this, that every problem that we face in this world today stems from one of these two things, or both of them really. A lack of understanding personal sovereignty and standing up for your own personal sovereignty, and this pay-to-live cycle. It is utterly ridiculous that they've taken the two things that God or the Creator, the universe, life, whatever, chance, if you don't believe in any of that, chance, if you believe in this evolution stuff, then they took the only freedoms you could have had right away from you, even before you got here, right? Your right to choose your own path, your right to be an individual, a unique thing with some purpose, and your right to just be alive without being bothered, without having to commit to something. It's very interesting to me, this debt-based economics and how long it's lasted. It's just so obvious. It's such BS to me. And it has been ever since I was a little kid. I never wanted, to get a job. I never wanted to be part of that society, because all around me, I constantly saw adults as debt slaves. I constantly saw people struggling for money, struggling to make ends meet, having to borrow money from this person to get this, you know, the wanting and the never getting. And it is soul crushing, especially to bright children who are just coming into this world, who have, you know, just sparkling dreams and imagination. Their connection to that conscious collective that I was talking about at the beginning, that ether, is seamless. They are inhabiting it, right? But this is a whole thing too, you know. And this is, I think, the main reason is that the shadow, the dark, the negatives, the archons, whatever you want to say, or call them, believe they are, I think they must understand the ether, understand imagination in the human being and our energy and our creation potential. And so they have very stealthily placed all of these tools and traps and even injected and, you know, spray and force all of these things, all of these chemicals onto us to limit our capacity to be able to actually feel the ether and to actually be real creators in this world like we're supposed to be. There's many, many histories, many explanations, possibilities, opinions, beliefs out there, and I personally don't really stick to one certain thing. I love to hear them all, because they provide unlimited insight, and I have the firm belief that no one can possibly ever know anything at this point, no human being at least, and that it's not our purpose to know everything. And so if I'm comfortable, a comfortable seat in the unknown, basically. And then I can just let everybody, every opinion out there, you know, come to the surface, examine it, give it its chance, and look at something else. And that's what I did a lot when I was looking, and I still do, you know, because I'm still looking and I'm still learning over history and over time, looking at this pay-to-live cycle. It's ingenious in its structuring and its binding. You know, it's very strong. And the only way that it breaks is when you can break it yourself. It's catch-22, as with everything else, because, you know, the individual can break it, and yeah, you can go live in the woods, or many people do, or many people trade and barter. They live outside the grid. They don't pay taxes, or they don't interact with any system, you know. But this is about the majority participation in a conscious collective feeding a certain opinion or belief structure, right? Most people are very much tied into this debt-based economics. It's the only way now, in my personal opinion, since it's gotten so far, the only thing that will fix this for most is when the wheels completely fall off of it. Which who knows when that will be, because this will play out to how far the slaves will allow it to go, right? Because when you have servitude, mastery over others, when you have tyrancy, there's only more. A tyrant only takes steps forward for more, right? They never step back and relinquish things that they've taken. It's not the way it works. They are collecting to build their empire or their state or whatever it is, their country, their whatever, fake structure they're hiding it behind. But it's this negative service to self that's at work. And if you understand how both polarities work, then right off the bat, you're going to see, okay, this is negative seeking and it's never ending, because that torus of energy is seeking out from the external to pull in to fill itself. And the well is infinite. And so it will always, always be seeking outwards to fill. It cannot stop doing that because it needs more to fill itself. That's why, unfortunately, this debt-based slavery system that's going on will just continue to get more, and it's already become very invasive into a personal life. However, it will become more if people do not break away, if the wheels don't fall off soon. I kind of envision this future template happening as a train, say, with multiple carts, okay? And like the back carts are less full, and as it's going faster and faster on these bad tracks, the back carts, are wobbly even more. And losing, and some are falling off, and as more are falling off, and as the track keeps going, those ones that are closer to the front and that are hitched tighter, with more things inside of them, with more weight to hold them down, to keep them on the track, they are going to remain longer until, say, the engine actually runs to that bridge that's broken and it all falls down there, or hits a brick wall, or however you choose to envision the ending. I don't have an ending. I don't see that far in advance. But what I do see is the wheels falling off, the back falling off, and the track is really not going anywhere pleasant. So if you're hearing and you're seeing the bumps, if you're in the cart and it is going crazy and you're seeing lots of disturbances in your physical life, if you're really noticing these inversions, noticing the problems, if you're saying, hey, this system is crazy, it doesn't work, it's not beneficial, it's harming people, know that your cart is falling off the rails. Jump out. Go look. You need to get your eyes open, see the scenery around you, but get ready to jump, right? Tuck and roll. Save yourself before that debt-based economics, the entire system, crashes. But, like I said, many, many people are feeling no bumps in their cart. They are feeling just the momentum, just the pull of the front of the train going, and they're probably holding onto their seats very tightly, right? Like when you're on a super fast roller coaster, and there's no bumps, it's just a smooth current of pulling forward to the point where you can't really even get up, you can't move, you can't look anywhere else, right? But many of us are feeling the bumps. Many of us are ready to jump out or have jumped out, So if you're feeling them, please look into sovereignty. Check out what that word means to you. Dig into the internet. Look at some people's perspectives on what sovereignty means. Check out common law and how you have the right to just be a human being alive on this earth. Get into a sense of personal power. Seek your morals. Understand you have the right to stand and become an actual adult. And if more and more of us see this, seek this, and step away from, turn our backs on the train crash, walk away and go build something in the woods off to the side, that's what we're supposed to be doing right now, I think, because we can't save that train. Nobody's throwing yourself in front of that train is not the purpose here. If you've been knocked out of the cart like me, or you've been in the woods for the side of the road for 10 years watching this train, like screaming to people that the track is bad, that it, that's all these metaphors. We could go into all these metaphors. Anyways, I don't want to get carried away here. I've been rambling for quite a while. Just know that there is a beautiful world off that track, and there are others out here, and we are building, we have been building, we will continue to build and seek better solutions. As soon as that crash happens, as soon as the rubble's there will be people who have ready at hand help to rebuild. Or not, I don't like the word rebuild, because we won't be rebuilding. We'll have built something new, and we will be offering solutions. So thank you for listening. If you have solutions, if this has inspired you in some way to seek solutions, I would love to hear about them. I am going to probably do one further podcast where I will talk about a couple of my ideas of solutions and what different systems could look like in different operations of society and life, especially different ways to operate as the individual. I'm going to get into that next, so I hope you'll join me next time. And again, I just thank you so much for listening to me. I hope you will share any comments you have, and that you have a blessed, wonderful day. Talk to you next time.